Well, normally we wait another minute or so, but I'm going to say let's go ahead and move straight ahead into the meeting at 1 o'clock since that's our published time. And I would call this meeting of the CDC in order. And then our first order of business is to review the minutes from our last meeting on March the 22nd. So that's included in the packet. If everybody has had a chance to take a look at that, I know I've gone through that. But any questions or comments regarding the minutes as they're presented?
Move we approve the March 22nd, 2023 minutes.
Second.
Okay. So there's a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Marcia, would you do us a favor and do a roll call vote for us?
Mike Campbell.
Yes.
Herbie Brown.
Yes, ma'am.
Jack McCann. Yes.
All right. Minutes are approved. Next item is the financial reports. And you can see we've got general fund status or financial summary from March, April, and May. I'm going to spend time on just the May one, but if there are questions on any of those three, let me know. You can see with the collections that have come in so far this year, our general fund balance for the year to date stands right now at $2.538 million or $2,538,872.39. In the capital improvement fund, which is for large repairs and capital site improvements, that fund currently stands at $249,474.78. And then the fund currently for the convention center debt is currently has a balance of $503,519.82. So we do have claims against all three of those today, but the claims that are before us, we could certainly cover in each of these categories. When we get to that point, we can certainly talk through those. Any questions on the balance in any of these three? One thing I will note is that the net rental income for that we've received from properties has been higher than we've anticipated this year as far as the income that's already come in. So that's been a pleasant surprise. We take that and we actually put that against the paying down the debt directly. So you can see that's been one reason why that convention center debt fund has grown the way it has. So
why is that? Why is the revenue going up? Is it just better occupancy? Or?
Well, it's fully leased. You know, we made a lot of repairs when we first bought that property, so it's starting to stabilize a little bit. We have a different management company, and so they're getting their feet wet, I think, with everything that needs to happen. They send a lot of emails on questions on should we do this or should we do that. So we're getting through that. They probably should be holding back some money for the fall taxes. You know, that's Hallmark would do that and manage that cash flow a little bit. And that's about $30,000, I think. So, so some of that could be, maybe they're not holding back as much as they maybe should be. So it doesn't hit all at once. But I could check that. And Marcia, I know, has been really good about, you know, getting some reports for the auditor's office.
So this comes to about what we would anticipate for the year. So I mean, we've typically not run more than $150,000, and this is at 136.
Yeah,
so I think we're roughly there. And another thing to note on this is we are on very short-term leases with these tenants at this point. So that's something that we will need to look at, resolve. If things do progress forward with another use for that land. So understand that may go down as we're moving forward. That's what we typically anticipate. Any questions on the financial summary on where those balances are or why they're there like that? Next thing is just you can see in the packet, there's also a summary of monthly tax collections for the innkeeper's tax dating back to 2016 and gives you the historicals there. And you can see where we are current year to date for 2023. So each of the months have come in higher than the previous year, and the previous year was a record year. So we are currently running about 24% higher than where we were at this point last year in the first 5 months of the year. And while it may not wind up being 24% the whole year, it certainly bodes well for growth in innkeeper's tax, which we would project into next year as well. Any questions on the financial statements, whether it be either those two summaries or other questions related to the general finances?
I make a motion to approve.
Second. There is a motion and a second to approve the financial statements. Marcia, would you move us to a roll call vote, please?
Mike Campbell,
Yes.
Kirby Brown,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff McKim.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a brief report from Visit Bloomington. Brief.
I brought 5 of these, so I shall put them here.
Thank you.
And just want to start off by saying just a big thank you to everyone at Visit Bloomington. There are 9 of us. Marcia, our finance controller, Laura, assistant director, chief operating officer. She manages all of our marketing people. Teal Stratty, Pete Nelson, Sean Ballard is our convention sales manager. We have 3 brand new people starting this year. That was kind of my point I wanted to make. So 33% of our staff. So a lot of this year is really about training them and getting, they're replacing people that have been there for decades, and that's not easy to do. So just a big thank you to everybody who's working very hard to do a great job. And we'll see that a little bit in some of these reports. But just starting off with convention marketing. Again, Sean Ballard is fantastic as our convention sales manager. He is going to be great when it comes to the expansion. And I mean, he's chomping at the bit. He can't wait to have more to sell, that type of stuff. But we're very excited about Indiana Society of Association Executives hosting the 24 conference here in next July. 100 to 150 event planners will be here. We're doing a preview dinner with them at the conference this year in Evansville on July 25th, which will be again a sneak preview of what we'll experience in Bloomington next week. So we're very excited about that. Again, Laura and Sean are planning most of that, doing a great job of that. But again, Sean has been traveling all over the country. His goal is writing about 30 leads to generate this year. He's already through 5/12 of the year, has 16 generating, a couple of big conferences, 24 National Association of African American Studies, 24 Living Church of God, and the 25 Fraternal Organization. So, and several others. So again, he does a great job, and things are going well with that. And as we talked about earlier, definitely, conventions and conferences, especially here in Bloomington and Monroe County, are back. And this expansion isn't about us trying to enter something new. It is about meeting the demand that already exists, and about taking care of the groups that we already have that are growing, and offering them the good experience and that they require. And so that's a big part of what that is. So we're very excited about that opportunity, and in the future being able to host groups of 300, 400, 500, or 2 groups of 200 at the same time, things like that. That's really what we're going to be able to do. And as Penny spoke earlier, it's about that weekday business and and getting those people here Sunday through Thursday. So very excited about that in the future. Sports marketing, aquatics, track and field, golf have just continued to explode for us since after the pandemic. So much stuff going on with that. A lot of things we do during the summer are services, you know, providing meals for the teams and the coaches, and it's hospitality for that. It's very important. That's one of the only ways we get them here is when we do that. But so lots of things happening with that. I mentioned the card farm, the turf field stuff coming up. You know, we have to be, again, that's going to help us so much. I mean, the attraction that people want is they want to come to Bloomington, they want to be in the college town, they want to do all the things that they can do while they're here playing sports. So that's beautiful, and to have those championship level turf fields out there is definitely going to make a difference. But it isn't all of a sudden going to make us Grand Park or Deaconess Field that has hotels and restaurants and water parks attached to them. But it certainly puts us a little bit more competitive, and so we're very excited about that. And again, we'll be ready to talk at the commissioner meeting and the council meeting coming up about what some of those specific opportunities are and the impact of that. So really looking forward to that. Like I said, golf has just continued to explode. You know, we thought golf was dead before the pandemic, but it certainly came back. Again, because people can be outside and spaced out, but obviously the foul course and its opening around that time has been a real coup for this area. Ranked one of the top, 20 courses in the country. We've been having great luck partnering with French Lick and doing extended trips, come play in Bloomington, go play in French Lick type of stuff. Just all kinds of interest in that. I think Pete was down in French Lick last week, and he ran into a group of 16 guys that were on a golf getaway that had our booklet that's what they were on the trip from, and they were from Michigan. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, things are going really well with that. I mean, we know we're a sports town. So leisure marketing, we're running digital, radio, outdoor, print, really mainly in Indianapolis, Chicago, Louisville, Evansville, Fort Wayne, Terre Haute, and Cincinnati. You know, not every single one of those mediums and every one of those markets. It's a mix of all that type of stuff, what we can afford, timing wise, campaigns, things like that. Again, Jordan Smith has just started, and you know, Laura and I have been leading him through that and training him and all that. So, but response to that has been great. I hope if you can't read it, I put some reports in here. You know, we're holding steady with web traffic to last year. Last year was a record year for us with web traffic. We're right even with that for the year. You can see we were. If you look at that first graph there, 21, 22, and 23 were down a little bit in April and May, but we were up in the first part of the year. But we'll be right there at the end of the year. And the next page kind of shows you top campaigns and how they're performing. You can see some of the things we already talked about today. Music. You know, we're really out there promoting arts. Culinary and outdoors are the main things in our leisure marketing. I don't think I've ever shared this one with you, that third graph, overall referral performance. So that shows you, and again, this is the month of May, but it shows you what people are clicking on our website. It makes sense. They clicked on Four Winds, Lake Monroe, Paynestown State Rec area. In May, it was National Donut Day. In May. That's why Crescent Donut was on there.
I happens ahead of my place. I was a little right. What's going on here?
You know, like Starlight Drive-ins because they open during May, that type of stuff. So anyway, that's good stuff that's on there. I always like to share stuff like that. You know, going to the next page, that red outdoor art. We got a billboard. I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but on the north side of town, going to Indy, near Oliver Winery. We've had a billboard welcoming people. We just have never been able to get it to where we like it, to where we think people notice it. So we just switched it to red. So you won't miss it now when you are coming in and that type of stuff. But these are just examples of some display ads and things like that. And, you know, getting back to what I was talking about that we're running. We're doing our golden ticket promotion again this year. That's where we stick 5 golden tickets in a visitor guide that we send out, and people win just randomly. And if you draw one, it's a visitor guide promotion. We want to try to get people to order our visitor guide. How many did we do last year? I can't remember. Yeah, during that promotion, like 5,600. We won an award for that, an Indiana Tourism Award for that promotion last year. But these are just examples. We're doing a partnership with Butler and Oliver in July, the wineries, to promote weekday visits, weekday tastings at the winery, that type of stuff. We've just been incredible, just had incredible results with travel media lately. We've got a writer in town right now from Extended Weekend Getaways. Is that where the writer's from? Yes.
Focusing on campus, college towns.
Right, college towns. I've just got some examples in here. I mean, just all kinds of TV appearances in Indianapolis. We've had Butler on there doing a wine tasting. We've had 2 or 3 musicians go on there and play, promoting upcoming events. 3 or 4 different chefs in the last couple of months that go on and do cooking demos. Just a great response to that. We had a Indianapolis Monthly came down and did an article. We took them on a tour and took them Monroe mushroom hunting. We had a food, wine, and travel magazine was here, focusing on Butler and Oliver. We had 2 cycling publications here, Cycling Weekly and Adventure Cycling Little 500. I keep saying I've been after adventure cycling for a decade to come to that event, and they finally did it this year. Both of those journalists stayed at the Union, had a great time. The one article came out, the adventure cycling one will come out in August. We're excited to see that. Music-wise, as Mike was talking about, we had the editor-in-chief of Leo Weekly out of Louisville. We got them to come for Grand Balloon. She loved Bloomington so much that she did a little article about Grand Bloom, and now she's going to do a whole article about Bloomington as a getaway from Louisville, which was my whole goal anyway. So that worked out great. But Nuvo's been covering it, that type of stuff. Lots of coverage of all the arts and things like that. I do have in here. My next page is the request for the switch yard that we talked about. Do you want me to go into that now, or do you want me to wait until we go through our claims? We talk about that.
You can certainly go through that now, okay, and we'll remember it as we go into.
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit already, but we have a new strategic plan this year of 23 through 25, our 3-year strategic plan, and one of the biggest new initiatives out of that was Visit Bloomington do more to promote the development and marketing of the arts, particularly music. That was a point made over and over in that. And so that was one of the reasons we started the Switchyard Park Thursday Night Music Series. It's why we helped start the Cosmic Songwriter Festival that was held in May and ran on a Wednesday through a Sunday, several hundred people came into the community for that. But the Switchyard Park Thursday Night Music Series, again, I talked about that. Working with Parks and Rec on that. They're providing the facility, management of the facility, event management, various other resources. We're providing the primary financial support, marketing, event management as well. Our goal is 3,000 attendees at each concert, knowing that we weren't going to get that at the first couple this year, but pretty excited to have close to 1,500 at that first one. We've been promoting road trips. Basically, the marketing, I think you can see it on one of these, is take a summer music road trip. We've been promoting those in Chicago, Indy, Louisville, Portland, all those markets that I've talked about. Again, try to get people here on that Thursday, get them to stay over, go to Food Truck Friday or whatever it is they want to do over the weekend, and grow awareness for Bloomington as an arts and music destination. And again, help activate the Switchyard Park as a site of concerts that draw more visitors.
This is a free series?
It's free. It's completely free. One thing I wanted to say is if you, so on the back page of this, I've got an example of an ad we ran in Chicago, but I break down the budget there. And so I've got that request for $50,000 from the CDC today. If you want to help us put towards that. Either way, you know, we have the money budgeted, it's in our budget to cover it all. It would be a huge help to us if you were able to contribute that request for 50, just again, so that would free up some other marketing dollars for us. But we're excited. A guy from the Indianapolis business reporter, Dave Lindquist, at 317 Lindquist, said everything's raising but the wages, which makes this series of free shows in Bloomington, Indiana almost too good to believe. He tweeted that in April in Indianapolis.
It was phenomenal. It was like the best way. You were like happy for 4 days after the concert. It was just really pretty special.
Yeah.
And it made a difference upping the sound system too, that like the upgrade.
Right.
That was a good decision.
We did pay for,
yeah.
we used the same sound company that did Grand Balloon, which is
it was wonderful.
Up the ante a little bit there just to make sure you could hear it across the park. But again, the goal of that is this. An example is that sound equipment sits on the stage. It needs to be hanging up from the top of that stage permanently in those rafters. Now they haven't got the engineering approval to do that yet, but they're working on that, and this is going to help them justify spending the money to do that. And they've known they needed to do that since the day it was built, things like that. So
it was a next level event. I mean, it's like one of those things that kind of takes us up to the next level of what Bloomington has to offer. I think it was wonderful.
The July one, I think we'll draw more people to that. Those are some pretty popular indie rock bands. But I'm telling you, the August 24th one with Molly Tuttle and her band that just won a Grammy Award for Best Bluegrass, we're gonna have a parking problem.
Yeah,
we've already got that worked out. We were working with the company that owns a lot across the street for overflow parking. We had about 10 cars parking at this last time. We'll have more the next time, but for that August 24th show, we're going to do a better job, or we'll really get aggressive about making sure we tell people how to park and logistics and all that stuff.
Could there be any options for shuttle from a city garage or anything?
Again, we've talked about that, and we've talked about. I know Talicia's already offered it up. I've been in contact with like Bloomington South to do that, but I just think again it's something where they won't take the shuttle unless they're forced to in some way. So it's an option, Jeff, and we've got time before that one to look further at it. We'll see what happens with the July one.
Bloomington South makes sense.
Yeah, they already said. As long as we had them covered on the lots covered on our liability insurance, they wouldn't stop anybody from parking there. They just don't want us to publicize it. So there are definitely all kinds of room for parking opportunities around there. So,
for the first time to do that, it's reputational. It's great to hear how the quality level that was delivered on that, and that kind of stuff builds, and you build a reputation based on that. That's awesome.
It's been starting in May, we had, like I said, we had that songwriter festival, then the Bloomington Early Music Festival was the next week. Then it went right into Grand Balloon, then it went right into this stuff. So we really do that, and not to mention every night in town, there's 3 or 4 music shows you can go to, whether it's on campus, through the Jacob School, or at some of our venues and things downtown. And again, that's what, I stood up there on that stage and introduced the bands that Thursday night, and I thanked everybody for being there and really urged them to get out and promote the arts and promote live music and promote these venues. Go out there and go to shows on a Tuesday night, a Wednesday night, and we got incredible talent in the community. And that's really what I wanted with this music initiative that we're working on with the Jacob School and IU Arts and Humanities and Secretly Canadian and radio stations in town and the venues and the record stores is, I think it would be great for us to eventually be able to offer a grant program to these venues where we could help them bring in better talent during the week that would help us draw more visitors, that type of stuff. So that's what I want this committee we're working towards to get to one day.
Awesome.
So
that was great. Questions for Mike or Visit Bloomington? I love the name of the bands, the Clan.
Yeah.
I want to know what the Clan looks like. Okay, EBI.
Okay, well, just quickly, and probably even tying in with that, DVI hosted an innovation showcase over the last couple of months to test some ideas of what people like and don't like and like to see more of. Placemaking, live entertainment came in by far the top ones. We did do a fun bus as part of that, just to test it a little bit to see. Consistency in a theme, and they're costly. And so anyway, we did some of those tests, but interestingly enough, at City Council, Steve Volan presented a downtown circulator proposal using CREED funds. And so we'll see where that goes, but the City Council made some recommendations on it, and that would go between the hotels and be used, but it has to be branded, it has to be consistent, it has to be free. I mean, it's expensive, and but as we continue to develop, this live music at the events are relatively new occurrences, really. Take the pandemic out of it, I mean, it really just kind of started maybe 2019, 2018. So I'm excited that there's support for that. I think it's a big deal. And so with that placemaking, a little bit towards safety, security, cleanliness, I mean, those are like basics that, as a community, we need to provide so that our artists can create, so our businesses can do business, so that they can focus on that. But, some of those basics of keeping things clean and maintained is still one of the most important things a community can do. And I'll just say we did the IU alumni leaders here last Friday, which was lots of fun. They were from around the world, and they're the ones who are in each different town, pulling those alumni together. And the whole building was red, and it was really lots of fun. And then Jean's got a whole list of things that are coming up on her sales report. So that's all I've got. The leases are fully leased. So nothing really add to that.
That was fabulous. I mean, that was so fun. That was new, first time ever. To go through the sales report, mid-year sales report, our total sales, we apples to apples again, January through the end of June are actually up through Sunday. This is fresh. 736,000 versus 509, same time period in 2022. Down a little from 2019, but I've got to wrap up to the year number and thinking about that. Room rental of that total has been 139,000 versus a little less than 120. Attendance up to 21,000 from right under 18 last year. And then here's the interesting thing though, fewer events, so 196 versus 211. So a little bit of a catering increase in that, but that's not all that it is. People are just adding more services. Money's starting to come back in some of the groups that have been here before. They're just able to add a little bit more than they've been able to in the past. The first half of the year so far, we have had 10 conferences total. We finished with all of them. 5 of them were 100% new to us ever. So that was pretty fun to tabulate. Second half of the year, we have 8 groups on the books now from August through October. So in 3 months' time, 8 groups. All of them are definite. They've been through the contract procedure, the whole process. They're all definite except for one. And I'm pretty sure that one's going to come in hopefully this next week. 6 of those groups were new. 6 out of 8 maybe. So when I look through that list, I mean, there's just such a wide variety. There is one group on here. If you look down in October, the Hoosier Association for Behavior Analysis. Those poor people have been trying now since they had an original intention to have their conference here in 2020. They finally have it. They rescheduled it so many times. The USDA Forest Service Eastern Region, which happens to be the largest one in the U.S., has had a couple of days on hold for a while. And I just put it on, I was like, what is this? Well, they were in last week and loved it here. And the woman who coordinates things like this for this group, lives in that group, and they have a headquarters down there. So these are now the eastern region. I actually pulled up the map of it. It goes from Minnesota to Iowa to Missouri, from the far western edge of those, all the way over and up to Maine. It's big, and it's the biggest one in the country. It has over 20 states and over 43% of the nation's population. They are sending representatives here to do training and get ideas about making the national parks more accessible. And so apparently we have some really good examples in the area that they intend to use on the field trip today. They just love the building. So that would be 50 people here for 3 days. They have a detailed proposal, and I put that one rules on in because they were really the coordinator told me that people are asking to come because we have such good outreach to access to so many of the areas that they important. So in 2024, we have groups on deck. Looks like 7 of those are on deck. 2 of those are new. Only one of those is definite at this point, and everyone else is somewhere else in the contract process. That. Any questions about sales?
I will add there were a couple folks. The Nutrition Association was here the night of the concert, and a couple of them went down to the concert. They loved it. I overheard them talking the next day, and
they were a little sad because they didn't have the full group here that night, but a lot of people just left the building.
I think they went to the concert, which is fine.
You know, I'm glad they came. Maybe they should pick some really terrible time of year and come here in like, I don't know, January or something.
Amen.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right.
Conferences are awesome.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on this for a second because I'm really sort of crazed by this information now as these new groups as the list of new groups gets longer. I really am looking at all the time who wants to come here and just can't. And in almost every case, some of the cases are it's because we're just too small. We can't hold 1,500 people in this building, or even like we have done as best we can, cobble together spaces in other downtown locations that are within walking distance. They can have breakouts at, you know, the Busker Chumley and stuff like that. So I'm really working on keeping the missed sales report concise and up to date. Now, 2022 was, I'm calling this a 2022 and a 2023 because that is when the requests come in to me. I find that's the most accurate way to track, like how many are coming in over time. And then I also keep track of when they want to be here. 2022 was about a whole page. And then so far now I'm in June of this year, end of June. And I'm at 41 events so far. And 2 rolled in this morning that I didn't have time to recap onto this. In fact, I was scribbling these handwriting as fast as I could to get the more recent ones in here. But 41 events at this time, and 11 of those I found to be really disappointing. And is it okay if I just run through some of the titles?
Sure.
Okay. There were 2 of them that were big professional events for the Dental Association, 120 people for one of them and 150 for another statewide level thing. The Indiana Library Federation, I've talked about that one before. That was 600 people. That was a lead that came through from Sean at Visit Bloomington, and that was just very bad. There's a TriStar Engineering Holiday wanted to have a big event here around that time. That was for 150. Popular Culture Convention for 3 days, and that was it was 150 for 3 days. Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. That was a multi-day event. And that was about 50 people, but still just based on, you know, who it is. I'd love to have them here. Leading Age Indiana Conference for 300. That was multi-day, and that group is working with medical and mental health providers on services for an aging, to care for an aging population. We are going to meet them. The Chin Youth Organization of North America, 1,500 people. That's on that one. That's the worst of all when I've got space, but just not enough. The Indiana School of Medicine had a conference for 350, had to pass on that one. And then this is recent, the National Organization for Women, now 100 people. I'm already booked. That's so fun. That one in the Library Federation. So that was the state chapter of now.
I mean, it's amazing to me because those are all like new names. I mean, it's just this plethora of groups that are out there.
I always look, I look at our account profile to see if some of these people have ever been here before, and they are not on the list.
Yeah.
Why did we lose IURC?
But already booked spaces.
No, we just didn't have any.
Typically when that happens, if I know, you know, is it a business conference? Is it a social event? And okay, out of the 41 so far on this list, you know, there's 11 or so that I was really sad about. Then all these other social events ranging in size from 30 people to 400.
Right, yeah. And
maybe somebody, you know, wanted a great big philanthropic event here, or a giant wedding reception because it's you know, a big Monroe County family who's been around historically forever. I'd love to have them here. But I typically try to refer people. I am working on trying to visit new places as they come online that have been either renovated into event venues, or they've added on or refurbished or something. Even the Hilton's ballroom that was, you know, their renovation recently. I went to that because I specifically wanted to see that ballroom. I really need a place to send groups of 200 or more. And I try to refer people to places that I think will be a good match for their event, and they're always appreciative.
Thanks. Questions or comments for PBI? All right. Well, thanks for catching us up to speed. Sounds like some cool stuff.
Feels like they hadn't used to me, but so
yeah. Well, let's move on to claims approval then. We have several claims in front of us here, so we're going to run through these in order. The first one that have before us on our list is third quarter operating funds for Visit Bloomington in the amount of $447,557. This is our normal operating claim. Any questions or comments on the claim? Seeing and hearing none, is there a motion to approve the claim?
Second.
Motion and a second. Marcia, would you move us to a roll call vote, please?
Mike Campbell,
Yes.
Kirby Brown,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff Kincaid.
Yes.
Okay, next claim we have before us is Marcia Roach. Second quarter professional fees to this group in the amount of $147.50. All the record keeping and meeting scheduling she does. Questions or comments?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, I hear a movement in a second. So Marcia, would you move us to a roll call vote, please?
Mike Campbell,
Yes.
Kirby Brown,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff Kincaid.
Yes.
All right, next claim before us is for DBI for operating funds for the convention center, convention services here in the building. That is in the amount of $91,142. Any questions or comments on the claim?
Move to approve.
I second.
Motion and a second. Marcia, would you move us to a roll call vote, please?
Mike Campbell,
Yes.
Kirby Brown,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff McKim.
Yes.
Okay, next one before us, Mike had mentioned, and this would come out of the commissioner's expense in the general fund, which we have $150,000 set aside for. Things like this that come up is the support for the Switchyard Park Music Series in the amount of $50,000. Any questions or comments on this claim?
How typical is this of other incentives and support that have come out of commissioners?
So for things like this, which would benefit the overall tourism, we have done this in the past for wayfinding in town. When we did a project wrapped around that, it is done to encourage tourism. We did budget for an increase in this year with the anticipation of being able to kind of feed into things that would grow tourism in the area and tourism dollars in the area. So we haven't used it as much within the last few years. We will use the same fund for incentives for DBI. Normally we'll make a claim for incentives for that they offer to groups coming in and staying at the or coming booking rooms at the convention center. So it's meant as an encouragement to do that. So this would not be an every year thing for something like this, but for one time launch it. Yeah, perfectly appropriate.
And what did you say was the total budget for commissioners expense?
150,000 is budgeted this year, and we'll get to the budgeting session. We might recommend leaving it at that amount as well too.
I have one question. I know it's early. Do you have like tracking of overnight rooms that are generated from it yet?
I don't from June. We don't have June numbers yet. So
If there's any way to do that moving forward, just so we can put it behind it. Outside of that, I move to approve.
Second.
Motion in a second. Marcia, would you move us to a roll call vote, please?
Mike Campbell,
Yes.
Kirby Brown,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff McKim.
Yes.
Speaking of room rental incentives, our next claim is room rental incentives also coming from the general fund and out of the commissioner's expense in the amount of $3,760 for groups that have met here in the convention center. Oftentimes we have to provide a discount in order to encourage them to come and book with us. And if they meet certain criteria, then the reimbursement amount is higher for each individual group. So this counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different groups that have stayed with us from January through May of this year. In the amount of $3,760.
And just so I can understand how this works exactly, this essentially covers the gap between what the organization is willing to pay and the market rate for that room at the hotel.
Yeah, book with us rather than somewhere else. An incentive.
And then what are just in general, what are the criteria?
So the criteria, I can look at them. Group is a new business and may possibly expand in the future. That one criteria. The group is here at a historically slower time for the lodging community, such as summer or November through February. Overnight rooms, Sunday through Thursday, is also a category. The group consumes at least 100 overnight rooms is another category that generates more overall revenue in doing that. Group utilizes multiple hotels, not just one hotel, and the group generates no less than $10,000 in economic impact. So per room, it can range anywhere from $5 to $10 per room, depending on the number of criteria that's that's met. So a group that has 5 criteria certainly is reimbursed at a higher rate than that if it does 3 categories.
What is OES-NA?
OES-NA. Oh, the group. Okay.
I looked this up all the time because it's such a long title. It's a military contractor organization.
And part of the reason, say we have a $2,500 room rental with a group that wants to have 100 overnight rooms, like we didn't want to lose that because somebody got hung up on the room rental.
Right. Yeah.
We also give them the discount. Things that we offer are, if it's a multi-day event, there's a huge labor savings for catering materials to get the conference set up. If you're going to use the same set with the brush for 2 or 3 days, so they get a small discount for that. If they're a nonprofit, we offer them an incentive, small incentive for that, pretty standard in the industry. And then another one for hotel usage. And so those 3 things combined, and it makes a difference. They appreciate being recognized, for those things in the first place, and that's usually part of my conversation when we're talking about post structure. Okay, this is a training consultant organization. Sorry, I'm thinking of somebody else. That has to do with a non-mobile training list. This group,
you now find it on your website.
yeah, it works with the electric grid.
Okay.
So it's kind of like the regulatory commission. We have a lot of groups that are here that work on statewide and national infrastructure criteria. Thank you.
Great question. Any other questions or comments on the claim?
Will be approved.
I'll second.
All right, motion in a second. Marcia, would you move us to a roll call vote, please?
Mike Campbell.
Yes.
Kirby Brown.
Yes, ma'am.
Justin King.
Okay, the next one we see is for capital improvements put forth by Visit Bloomington to repair and resurface the visitors' parking lots there at the property. The amount of $27,650. And I'm assuming that's the parking lot adjacent to your building.
Yeah, and it's actually completely redoing it. It isn't, that's the research we paid. We've never, it's the original one.
Mill it down.
Right. We got, we did get, we had bids. The lowest bid is what we're going with. And someone declined a bid. We got another one that was $7,000 higher. So.
Okay. And I'm going through that myself right now. It's more than 27. So yeah.
We think we got our money's worth out of that original.
Yeah, I guess.
A little bit.
Any questions or comments on the claim? The only comment I would make is we continue to be a good steward of our properties. That's one reason why we continue to reinvest in them. We're not being don't just spend money for no reason or frivolously, but we do want to preserve what's there and the use of that and the care of that asset. So that's my comment on this question.
Totally approved.
Okay,
Second.
motion is second. Marcia, would you move us to a roll call vote, please?
Mike Campbell.
Yes.
Kirby Brown.
Yes, ma'am.
Justin King.
Yes.
All right. The next one that is before us today is for SMI. This is a repair to the folding wall in the building up above. This was put forth as a capital request. Doesn't really fall underneath that criteria, being under $5,000. I would suggest moving this to a commissioner's expense, because it does still need to be done, coming out of the general fund instead. There is a substantial amount of money still left in that fund, around $96,000 at this point, because we made 2 claims against it today. What would be my suggestion is to move it from the capital into the commissioner's expense.
Move we approve this claim out of the commissioner's expense.
Second.
Motion and a second. Marcia, would you move us to a roll call vote, please?
Mike Campbell,
Yes.
Kirby Brown,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff Winfield.
Yes.
Mark out the fund number. Marcia, could you make sure that that gets to the general on that fund location and then to commissioner's expense line? Next claim that's before us is for course and fire and safety. This is a life safety issue. It's repaired to the Siemens panel and annunciator here in the building in the amount of $4,929.45. Right at that $5,000.
Life safety have the same 5,000. Or since it's life safety, does that override that?
We haven't made that caveat. I would say because it's within $100, I'm comfortable with it.
It's like in my experience with life safety, some of the rules
It's a
fly
little
out the
different.
window.
That's
anyway,
kind of where
so
it's one of those you've got to do. It's unexpected. It does impact the operation. Really a non-negotiable.
yes. I mean, I definitely would approve us asking more. Yeah, just general.
And that 5,000 is our own.
Right here, said that. Yeah.
It looks like the invoice.
What's
Oh, I see. They charged us tax. We just marked that out.
Yeah, marked it in. The invoice is a little over that, like $5,100.
Yeah.
We removed the tax and put it just underneath it. Questions or comments?
I move we approve.
Second.
Motion in a
Oh,
second.
thanks.
Marcia, would you move us to a roll call?
That's it.
Mike Campbell,
Yes.
Kirby Brown,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff Winfield.
Yes.
Next one is also a capital improvement from DBI for repair of the kitchen floor that was bubbling up. This is a repair being affected right now by HFI in the amount of $35,000. You want to tell us a little bit more about what caused it and how they're addressing that?
There is a leak someplace. And they had to pull the floor up to be able to find it and to repair, and which meant pulling out probably 6 pieces of kitchen equipment, and then to level up the floor. They're in the process of doing it now. So it's an estimate to see like what all they're going to run into.
So do we think this is final or is this preliminary?
I'm hoping it's high, so we could even, it was more of a, we need to get this done. I need to see if this is something that this body would approve, like kind of getting it on people's radar screens. And, we don't meet again for another 3 months. I'm hoping it's high and then it can come in low. So I think HFI is okay waiting if we want to wait till we have the actual invoice. But I just kind of wanted to get it, or we could, if it is up to 35,000 and then we make the claim for whatever the amount is under, but because of the timing of everything, this was the only time we could do it to be outside of events.
Is there a process to approve invoices?
It was a little bit of an
in between
emergency.
There's not in between sessions.
So would it be an approval of up to, and then if it were to exceed, it would have to wait for the next round to approve an additional?
Or come from another fund.
Or come from another funding source, yeah.
And we have done that in the past. We've done that based on estimates, work estimates, where there's time and material involved, which is what this is. And you can never know that until they're actually finalized, and generally a couple of weeks afterwards. And at that point, you're putting that business
There's no really way to get secondary bids because you got somebody already kind of digging in to find it. Anyway.
And I'm not sure who would I would trust to do it either. And we did have a structural engineer come and look at it, so it's not in danger of falling through the floor. That was our number one thing. A side note, the metal rebar that goes through concrete, they thought maybe that was the issue and that it had popped and that's why it was bubbling up. But this building was built before that was invented. The concrete floor. So I haven't been up there in the last couple of hours to see what they've discovered.
Add some rebar.
I'm hoping it's just like the epoxy on the top level and they're not going to get into major concrete, and this ends up being a $12,000 which is what I originally thought, and I thought I was estimating high, but so
I have
it's exploratory at this point. I'm fixing the plumbing and the leak.
I have no problem approving up to, not to exceed 35,000.
All right, a second.
Okay, motion and a second to take this as a not to exceed estimate is on the floor. Marcia, would you move us to a roll call vote?
Mike Campbell,
Yes.
Kirby Brown.
Yes, ma'am.
Jack Minkin.
Yes.
I will share this is the 100th anniversary for the building
Nice.
this year.
Before rebar was invented. That's
Isn't that great? I
have to
know.
look up when new tagline.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna take
Pretty
care of
funny.
you.
Rebar.
Pre-rebar. It is John Crane. He's a structural engineer and he's a friend of ours, and so he didn't charge us, but he's who people call for structural engineering in town.
Okay,
Oh,
last claim that we've got before us today is the loan amount on this building and then the surrounding properties that were purchased in the amount of $159,000 to Regions Bank. Any questions or comments on the claim?
Move we approve.
Second.
Motion in a second. Marcia, would you move us to a roll call vote, please?
Mike Campbell,
Yes.
Kirby Brown. Kirby Brown.
Yes, ma'am.
Jack Minkin.
Yes. It's a
Little drama.
That's all the claims we have before us today. Next item on the agenda is the upcoming CVC budget for 2024. As we've looked at the financials and reviewing those earlier in this meeting and where we anticipate tax collections to be at the end of this year, and really with the momentum that's already been gathered, I would propose a 10% increase in the base budgets to Visit Bloomington and to DBI for convention services. I do still think what that does is gives us a fair amount of anticipated growth in our general fund. As we move to opening a new convention center, we're going to need, for lack of a better term, we're going to need a war chest of funds in order to pay for and run an expanded staff, expanded costs before the revenue really picks up. We're going to have to pre-sell and we're going to have to operate before we're really at capacity. So building that war chest, so to speak, over the course of the next few years makes a lot of sense. In addition, we could also use this surplus for other needed attraction development and tourism development projects in Monroe County. So I don't think there's a mandate to expend all funds to both organizations that are anticipated to be a surplus. As a matter of fact, I think this body keeping an eye on that and knowing where to expend that, where it's the most impactful is an important role we play. So, but that being said, I still think that there's an expenditure where we could grow and really do something with the things that Talicia's outlined, both in safety in downtown, and then just the increase in costs of operating convention services here in this location. Is certainly appropriate. I know she's got a couple of other repairs that have landed that did not come before us today. And then Mike, same thing with the need and the ability to continue to market our overall destination. I think that that growth is money well spent. Any other thoughts or questions, or
do you think the commissioner's expense should remain constant at 150,000 or?
I think that does give us some opportunity for when there's a music series or something like that, which is a developing draw for that gives us an opportunity to talk about that and decide that's something that we want to, we feel is needed enough in order to do that.
I guess I'm asking, is that high enough?
Well, that would be something you're probably better at, because we would go to the county council to say we want to raise this limit without coming to talk to you first. And how would the county council feel about that? We also want to be responsive and you know, come to our partners with the county council and say, this is where our expenditures, this is why we would want something very large, which is what we would do if this was a much larger number anyway. So I don't know if you probably are in a better position to know how that might be received. Maybe it could go up.
Well, so for example, let's just say that the CDC decided to partner in, I don't know, soccer turf fields, right? Just to pick a random example. That's the sort of thing that potentially you could come in for an additional appropriation. That's what you're thinking? Absolutely, and we've done that in the past. So when we bought the 2 McFeeder plots for the convention center expansion, and we worked with the county to expend another $500,000 on that land purchase. We went back before the county council and said, we do have the money in the general fund. We think this is the right way to spend that in order to continue to reinvest in our tourism dollar. I think a large expenditure like that for public accountability, the county council would want us to do that too. Yeah, so let's stick with 150 then. Okay. And the county council's always been great partners. See how I'm kissing up right there. To work with us and know that when we bring those things, it's generally for a reason, and it's well thought out. So.
I'm comfortable with the 12% increase, to be honest with you, with the surplus that we have already, and then understand building a war chest, but it's going to take a few years to get the thing going before we're at that point as well. So we got more years of surplus coming.
But it sounds like you're requesting the 10%. Your recommendation is to 10%.
My recommendation would be 10%. I mean, certainly, and I don't imagine either Mike or Talisha would say, hey, no, thanks. We don't need that. We wouldn't use that extra fund. And certainly if this body feels comfortable with 12%, we could certainly do that. And make that the recommendation, and we have the funds, and that would be a responsible use. I would just want to know what we would use that additional funding for.
I guess I'd rather stay with the 10%, given that's your recommendation. I think it seems like everybody's thought through how that 10% would be spent. If there's something new that comes up as we describe it, you could always come to an additional appropriation. Right. Okay. I'm going to move recommendation of the budget with a 10% increase as shown on this sheet.
And obviously I'm comfortable with 12, so I'll be okay with 10.
Well, and as a point of,
point of procedure, I brought this forward as a recommendation, so really it is a motion, and in my motion at 10%, and so Jeff would be
The second.
doing the second.
I'm okay, I guess I'll say aye.
Okay. That being the case, Marcia, would you move this to a roll call vote
Mike
at
Campbell.
10% increase for the base budget for Visit Bloomington and for DBI, and then maintaining the commissioner's expense, the debt fund, or the capital improvement fund contribution annually at 50,000, with expenditures approved up to 100,000. So we're planning on contributing 50,000. That's internal that we take from the general fund, but in the past few years, we've expended far less than that. So rather than just having that thing grow and grow. So I guess back up, the recommendation is 10% to Visit Bloomington, 10% to DBI as far as an increase, keeping all others the same.
Yes, that's
Probably the best way to put that. So now would you give us to a roll call vote on that?
Mike Campbell,
Yes.
Kirby Brown,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff McDaniel.
yes.
All right, budget's approved. Any old business? Or any other new business? I'm sorry, I jumped. Budget certainly new business. Any other new business? Any other old business? Any public comments? Let me see. All right. In that case, thanks for a 2-hour meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, very much.